Hi, Tony Ritrovato for Retro Grammar. This is our 7th session. And I have something prepared here. I know it's not professional. It's the best I could do. That's going to be there forever now. And when I explain what it's all about, you'll see why. Last time out, I was trying to tell you that phrases occur in the dictionary, but there are too many definitions. There are too many non-grammatical definitions that you can't really do anything with if you're studying grammar. The definition I gave you was a group of words that work together as one to do one of the three main jobs that words do. There's glue, but I'm talking either naming, describing, or action. That's what a phrase is. You can work with that definition, get an awful lot out of it. But I want to clue you into something here. You know, anytime you classify things, there are different levels of generality involved. How can I explain? You can say a naming word would be something like Tony Ritrovato. That's a naming word. But another naming word would be person. Now that's a more general word. And another naming word would be he. That's a more general word than that. They all name, but there are different levels of generality there. When I talk about phrases, there is more than one level involved of generality. And I'll try to be clear as to which level I'm dealing with at the time. When we get to actually working with phrases, you'll understand this much better. But just remember what a phrase is. A group of words working together to do a particular job. Now, having put that behind us, I want to get to the clause, because the clause is the heart and soul of the language. And the definition that you're given, you can't do anything with. It's my opinion. I was never able to do anything with it until I understood what a clause was. Then in retrospect, I could go back and say, now I see what they were trying to say. It could have been done better. I've done it better. Here's the way a clause goes. I'm going to put it to you two different ways. I told you that words either create pictures in your mind or else they glue the pictures together. Okay. When you get a picture in your mind and you make that picture move, that's a clause. You start with a picture, make it do something, you have a clause. That's one way to look at it. Here's another way. Words do four things. But some of the things that words do are more important than others. For instance, the naming job, the action job. And every time I say action, there's another piggyback job involved, which is linking. Action, linking. They're kind of the same thing. These two are more important than the other two. Words do four things, yes, but these two, naming and action, they are the most important things that words do. If I take a word and I use it to name, and then I take a word and I use it to show some kind of action, I have created a clause. I've composed, contrived a clause. A clause, if you want to look at it the simplest way, is a name-action combination. You see a name, you see an action, you've got a clause. Clauses, now I'm going to go a little more deeply into this. Clauses are arranged in four patterns. There are four patterns, and these patterns represent the whole language. Give me a sentence. I don't care how complicated it is, I will break it down into these patterns repeated again and again and again. It's all sentences are. Each one of this represents a name and an action. As I told you, that is a clause. Sometimes you'll have another name. That's still a clause because, see, name, action. The fact that there's another name, that's not what makes it a clause. This is what makes it a clause, but sometimes you have that. And this is fine. Name, action will be something like, I slept. It's a clause. It's a sentence, too. All clauses start out as sentences. When I teach grammar, I make this assertion, and you have to buy into it. For my students have to accept this so we can build on it. Every thought that comes to your mind comes first as one clause following one of these patterns. and they are all sentences. When you think a thought, it starts out as a single clause pattern, and that clause is always a sentence. Now, by doing all kinds of nonsense to it, we arrange these clauses, and we manipulate them, and we combine them, and we make these complicated sentences. But if you wanted to find out what the sentence was all about, you could retrace the steps. You could revise the original thought in your head, and you'd break it down into these patterns. Name action, name action, name. Now remember, every time I say name action, the linker is a piggyback. So a name linker, that's a clause too. But how can you link something? I mean, if you link something, that means you're putting things together. So you'll never see a name linker by itself. You'll always see something else behind it. It gets confusing, but it isn't confusing. These right here are your Bible. Want to study grammar? Study those 4 patterns. 4. That's all. Just 4. And we will get to that more in